Drew here, and for me, Pax Bostonia, the season finale of City on a Hill Season 2. I enjoyed this season overall. I thought the writing remained sharp, but because the outcomes were kind of predictable, I feel like this finale fell a little bit flat. I think that if there was one gut punch moment this episode, it was the reveal that Kelvin had had his head smashed in prison after confessing to his crimes and pleading guilty. And, we only got one real moment where he was himself this episode. Arguably on the stand, I feel he was a different person. But the moment where he tells Grace, please don't come back to see me next week. I can't be thinking about you in prison. I have to focus on other things now. And the tragedy of Kelvin is, of course, that someone like him seems like they have potential for rehabilitation. Like he never showed any indication that he wanted to be a part of the life of crime. He never showed any indication that he had a lust for violence. He really seemed a reluctant participant in Anton's life of crime. So to me, there was hope for him, but now there isn't because he's dead. So that's the real tragedy of his story. And, you have this scene where Siobhan and DeCourcy talk about him, and DeCourcy obviously participated in Kelvin's conviction, but in this moment where they're discussing Kelvin and what happened to him, someone who was the brother of someone who cost them the life of their child, that they sit there and she says to him, what are we supposed to do about someone like him? Like he's gonna get thrown away. Does he deserve to have this happen to him, given that he kind of got pushed into it by his circumstances? And I think that this would be more powerful if they had shown us some specific examples of like why Anton and Kelvin felt pushed to do what they did. Too often we saw them having a seemingly good life with Grace at their home and seeing her trying to impart moral values to them. So it's a little bit hard to understand like why they felt the need to do this. We're given kind of generic reasons that, people in their situation would typically feel, but we're never given their specific reasons. And I feel like it would have been helpful if we had known specifically what pushed them, if we could have seen some of the circumstances that made them feel like this was the route that they wanted to go. But nonetheless, this moment where they're discussing Kelvin's case and DeCourcy points out that, there's a lot of people in the same or similar circumstances that didn't go the route that Kelvin and Anton went. And essentially Siobhan says, let's change the subject, which is kind of what I feel like the writers were trying to do, because it's a complicated topic and there are no easy answers, because you do have to have justice for Renia and you have to have justice for DeCourcy and Siobhan's child, and you have to have justice for the community. But at the same time, don't people like Kelvin deserve a second chance? It's a tough conversation, and it's something that, like I said, there's no easy answers. But this episode, like I said, I feel like a lot of the plot lines, I just feel like they didn't really know how to wrap up. I felt like with Jackie, for instance, after watching him go so far in a new direction this season as he sought to make an adjustment, as he put it, to have him end up, likely losing his position in the FBI because of what happened to Holly Gunner, ultimately due to the actions of DeCourcy, who's the one who drew this to Kimizu's attention. I feel like after watching him try to turn over a new leaf, after watching him work so hard at his marriage and do all the other good things that he's done this season, helping to get the Boston police officer who killed Anton, have him get a civil rights violation, helping to make that happen, to watch him then end the season on such a defeated note, tossing his badge into Boston Harbor and basically, essentially being on the outs. I feel like this is just not the note that they should have ended this character on this season. I think they needed to at least give us some source of hope for the character. I don't know if Kevin Bacon's being written out of the show or what's going on. I get it. I mean, I don't think Jackie Rohr really should be an FBI agent, but the way that they portrayed him this season, I feel like they should have made his ultimate being thrown out of the FBI the result of something he's done that we see as being irrefutably bad and something that he's, not turned away from, that he's not repentant about, something that we can say, yeah, he deserves to be thrown out. We know he deserves to be thrown out, but it feels wrong under these circumstances, I would argue. The plot line with Maeve and Jenny, this was such a waste of space this season. I feel like this show has a wife problem, as I've said, and I think that it was particularly acute here in that Maeve is dead. We never really saw this happen. Jenny never finds out it happened, so it doesn't really have any effect on her. It doesn't really seem to affect Jackie particularly profoundly. The only thing that we really realize is that he's protected his wife from the knowledge that she gave money to an IRA terrorist. So to me, that this came to basically a dead end, literally. I feel that they really just don't know what to do with the wives of the main characters in this show. I think this extends to Siobhan to a certain extent, although I feel that they've kind of come up with a solution and then they're like, well, we'll have her be the representative of people, a different aspect of the justice system, that people need protection from prosecution, that they need to have a fair trial. We're going to have her represent people in tough spots as she makes this decision to leave her law firm and to go to work for the ACLU, which is kind of, a cheat, because they're like, well, now we'll get her in the courtroom with DeCourcy all the time, which I'm like, does this even happen in real life? Do they even allow prosecuting attorneys and defense attorneys to be husband and wife? Wouldn't that be something that would get kind of curtailed before it started? Like, no, you guys can't face off in the courtroom. That's not going to work. But they're going with it. So I think, though, particularly where I feel like the problem with the wives was pretty obvious to me was with Kathy. Whereas I think that, having her kill Jimmy, that was one of the best moments for her character this season. I think that it was a moment where the character seemed important to the show. But since then, she's kind of just seemed like an unnecessary appendage. And I get it. I think that they wanted to give, kind of an ending to Frankie's story. I really don't know why they dragged out the fact that he was dead so long and didn't just immediately let us know that he was dead, because it felt like they just were twisting the knife in the wound, essentially, but for no reason particularly. But, she kills Jimmy, and then she finds herself not having that shield, that protection from the people in this criminal world upon which she feels like she has to enter. And then she goes and kills this man who clearly seemed intent on raping her or assaulting her because she hadn't paid back the money she owed quickly enough. And then she decides to flee Boston, and that probably means she's gone from the show because, this is a Boston show. They're not going to go flash over to Florida to show us what's going on with Kathy. But to me, this whole plot line, like, Kathy was kind of a numbskull the whole season. She just did things that didn't really make sense from a logical perspective. She was a very emotionally driven character. But to me, to have her not basically, like, I didn't exactly want to see this happen, but I feel that in a show like this where you've seen this character do these bad things, you have to see the emotional payoff for her crimes. It's like Breaking Bad. You don't want Walter White to die, but you kind of realize that he has to for the things that he's done. And I feel similarly with Kathy, that having her abscond to Florida just doesn't fit with what we've seen happen this season. I feel like they kind of wanted to end this plot line with a ray of hope because they know that what happened to Grace Campbell was so profoundly sad that they don't really want to, linger on just another sad plot line. But I feel that realistically and from a plot perspective, she needed to in some way get her comeuppance for the things that she's participated in. She's wise. To get out while the getting is good. I feel that, very clearly she can't count on people underestimating her because she is a woman forever, giving her opportunities to shoot them in back alleys. But nonetheless, I don't think that this was a very satisfying ending to this plot line. And I feel like it shows that the writers really didn't know what they were doing with her this whole season. I feel similarly, though, that Jenny, showing up at her father's doorstep, trying to confront him about the fact that he abused her as a child and then being told that he doesn't want to talk to her. Like, I don't know what they're doing here. Like, if that's all there is to this plot line, then I guess it kind of makes sense. Like, you think you're going to get this cathartic moment where you can confront someone who has wronged you and affected you so profoundly in a way that very few people can understand. And then to, be denied the right to even confront him and to act as though he feels you have wronged him in some way. I feel like that's a very, very, very hard thing to grapple with for this character. But at the same time, I kind of feel like they're going to have her father appear if they do a third season. So to me, it really seems as if this was kind of a wasted opportunity. When it comes to Jackie and his relationship with DeCourcy, I feel that this season kind of tried to have it both ways. They started out the season with them kind of at odds with each other, and then by the end of the season, they're basically just randomly meeting each other at the bar every episode for a chat. And, to me, it's like they're really, really chummy, but then they also want to be like, they have this moment where Jackie asks DeCourcy if he would testify to his character, and DeCourcy at the very least seems reluctant to do so. So they kind of want to have it both ways, where DeCourcy realizes what kind of scumbag Jackie is and isn't really wanting to help him. But at the same time, they've been hanging out at the bar, chatting like old pals all season long. So to me, this is a little bit of a cheat with the writing where they want to have it both ways. And it never really was convincing from either perspective. If they're going to be people that don't trust each other and are kind of on the outs with each other, then let them be that. If they're going to be frenemies, let them be that. If they're going to be partners who get along and meet at the bar to discuss their cases, then let them be that. They can't be all three. But regardless, I feel that the pitch for season 3 is just not that strong. I feel like this season was decent, and I would definitely check in just because I feel like, at least just to see what the next case is, I would definitely give it a couple episodes. But there's a good chance that this is a show that I drop out of. It's very old school in a refreshing way in some ways, but also in a way that it just doesn't feel like something that you have to watch. It feels like something that you can enjoy or leave. It's like you could take it or leave it. It doesn't seem like something that is must-see television. If it had come out 10 years ago, I feel like it would have hit a lot harder. But in this day and age with so many, much, much more contemporary feeling and relevant shows, I feel that this show doesn't really have it doesn't seem as necessary as it might have if it had come out 10 years ago, around the time when Breaking Bad was at its heyday. But those are just my thoughts for what they are worth. Let me know what you thought in the comments. If you're interested in seeing upcoming reviews on this channel, please consider subscribing. And as always, thanks for watching.